So if you're a frequent viewer of my DVD and Blu-ray videos on this channel, you know that I love consistent spine art for Blu-rays. And you may also know that I love connecting spine art, which brings together multiple series or movies in a nice mural that you see on the shelf. But what if I were to tell you that something like this has totally betrayed me?
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to my breakdown of the current status of the DC movie spine art. While this sounds incredibly specific and probably really personal and not necessarily something anyone was asking for, we're doing it anyways because it's incredibly personal and super specific to what I really like. And that is going to be these movies in particular. But I feel like some context is important. Now, if you're talking about spine art consistency and connecting spine art, I have other videos on the channel, such as one where I talk about consistent packaging, and also one that talks about inconsistent packaging. So if you're looking for more Blu-ray stuff, there's definitely things to look at on the channel. I recommend you check those out, because a lot of this stuff I have kind of touched on before. In fact, I did touch on the spine art of these movies at one point. That being said, I think it's time to deep dive into what the heck is happening, because a future release has kind of thrown this entire thing into chaos. But let's talk about the packaging on the DC animated movies leading into this, so we can get some clues as to why now I'm saying everything is chaotic. So when we're talking about DC animated movies, I want to make sure the distinction is clear, because there has been quite a bit. First of all, you know, DC direct-to-video movies is nothing new. These are not like the first examples or anything. These are just two I had sitting around in the Blu-ray shelf. But Superman, Brainiac Attacks, Batman, Mystery of the Batwoman, these were direct-to-video movie tie-ins to shows. Mystery of the Batwoman came out randomly because they wanted a Batman movie out, and Superman, Brainiac Attacks came out to tie into Superman Returns, using the art style, but not all of the voice actors from the Superman animated series. It doesn't fit in canon, but it exists. So anyways, these are original movies released straight to video. They were released on DVD first, and I think maybe VHS, not Blu-ray. These are reissues. Again, we're not keeping the DVDs around when the Blu-rays exist. But these movies were released under the, branding of the shows they were in. This is the case for like Batman Sub-Zero, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. There was enough of these to kind of start the trend. But there was consistent branding that came in place with the DC Universe animated original movie line. This started with Superman Doomsday. I have that movie in another set, so, just ignore that I don't have some of the earlier stuff here. There's some stuff in storage between a move, but we're just going to, go with this branding. So DC Universe animated original movie, like Green Lantern First Flight here, is a direct-to-video movie. Now, the reason why this branding came to exist is because these movies started to go for an older audience, because you see you got the PG-13 there. Because outside the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker uncut version, most of the movies were pretty much kid-friendly prior to this. They were a little edgier than the shows at times, but when it came down to it, these were kind of more towards the teen and adult crowd, and they become very popular. I think it's, if you know DC by this point, you know that they do these animated movies, and for the longest time, they were all excellent. Quality has slipped in time since. But if you're looking at something like Green Lantern First Flight here, great movie. DC Universe animated original movie was the branding. And this branding carried forward to a bunch of movies that weren't necessarily connected. There was some, like for example, Superman Batman Public Enemies here, had a sequel, Superman Batman Apocalypse. And that was kind of one of those things where you'd get sort of some connection, and a lot of them would use some of the DCAU voice actors like Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly. So you had some sort of sense of continuity. Justice League Crisis on Two Earths was made actually from a script for a Justice League Unlimited movie, so that kind of thing. But the movies typically were standalone. Like I said, the Superman Batman movies had a sequel, but that was pretty much it. Like, they were pretty much standalone products, but they had this consistent branding. This was this is the first showcase collection. So while the headliner was Superman, Shazam, Return of Black Adam, this also included the extended versions of Jonah Hex, Green Arrow, and Spectre, which were shorts that were included with some of the previous movies. Again, none of these really have any continuity between them, but they did have this consistent branding. This one specifically does say DC Showcase Animated Original Shorts compared to DC Universe Animated Original Movie. And then, this is pretty much the case. They were released under the Warner Premiere label originally, because that was what Warner Brothers' direct-to-video market style was. And this continued. This changed from I think, yeah, between these two, DC Universe Animated Original Movie became DC Comics Premiere Movie because Warner Premiere was still kicking. DC changed their logo to this one I'm not a big fan of, but, you know, you had continuing to release things. Oh, guys, remember ultraviolet digital copies? That doesn't even exist anymore. So you started to look forward, and then we went back to DC Universe Animated Original Movie with The Dark Knight Returns, and this was one of the first two-part movies. So you can see, you got Dark Knight Part 1, Part 2, because this was going to be a longer production, and then they re-released it again with a combined version, which is going to be the case later on. But again, you see, now we're back to DC Universe Animated Original Movie. This is a very long title for a series of films. And then here, Superman Unbound as well. Now, this era of the movies did sort of wrap up with the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox movie, which was adapting the DC comic Flashpoint that ushered in the New 52 era of the comics. So the movies started to change branding, specifically with Justice League War. And let's look at that, because that's where this starts to get a little weird. Welcome, my friends, to the DCAMU, the DC Animated Movie Universe. So starting with Justice League War and then Batman, what was it, Son of Batman, those are the two that are not here. Again, storage, things moved, it happens. But the DC Animated Movie Universe was a continuing universe. At first, we weren't sure if that was going to be the case. Justice League War was kind of a standalone, but it did sort of build off of the character design seen at the end of Flashpoint Paradox. So Flashpoint Paradox is really the beginning of this. Now, that being said, they did start changing the packaging up. So for the previous DC animated movies, if you had noticed, there was, you know, pretty much just the logo on the side. And also between Superman Unbound and Throne of Atlantis, Warner Premiere folded into Warner Home Media. So now the packaging's a little different. You got the little like DC side corner thing. Now it says DC Universe Original Movie, as opposed to the much longer DC Universe Animated Original Movie. They basically just took the animated part out, so now it's DC Universe Original Movie. So you know it's a new movie direct to video. And then they added these cool little character portraits. So you can see Aquaman here. Then you get the idea. So we got Aquaman there. And then, now it says, continue your journey into the DC Universe. So they're trying to connect the movies because, hey, these are actually connected. Because Throne of Atlantis and all the others here are connected films. Till we get down here. But when we're looking at the stack of movies here, you can see these little character portraits. Except when they started doing this, because they start mixing in steelbooks. Still keep the DC Universe Original Movie. I don't know why I started getting steelbooks. Most of these, actually I just remembered, most of these would come with, there was an option to get them at Best Buy and they'd come with a figure. And I like that. And then they started doing that, I think, with Green Lantern First Flight. But they stopped doing that, and then sometimes there'd be a steelbook instead. Or there would be a steelbook and a figure. I don't know. I got really wishy-washy and I didn't stick to a consistent style, as you can see, because I got 4 steelbooks. I don't know why I did that, but I like steelbooks because they're cool, and I like the fact that they're artwork all the way around. That's really neat. So, going forward, these are all movies in a connected universe. So, naturally, they have similar packaging style. And then, DC Universe Original Movie, from here, so Teen Titans versus the Judas Contract, says DC Universe Original Movie. They simply change it to DC Universe Movie, starting with Suicide Squad there. And then once again, when it comes to the 2-part stuff, so here's Death of Superman. This Constantine movie came between them. Reign of the Superman came as well. And I bought this on Steelbook because I knew, first of all, I love the Reign of the Superman comic, so that ties into it. But I knew that there was going to be a combined version, and boom, here's the combined version, which also came with Superman Doomsday as a bonus disc. Kind of strange. But anyways, so you have the combined version of the movie. So it's good to assume that anytime there's a 2-part movie, we're going to get a combined one. And this wasn't too long after. It was only a few months later. More on that in a moment. But, DC Universe Movie, these are all tied in to the same universe. I love all the Wonder Woman villains that were in this one. And then it all came to an end with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, because this was the conclusion of this universe. This is a pretty conclusive ending. Also of note, they started doing DC Showcase shorts again. So this was the end of the universe for, it's funny because it's like, continue your journey into the DC universe is on all of these, even though this is pretty much the end. So that was the end of the DCAMU. And then after that, we had the Deathstroke Knights and Dragons movie, which was a combination of web shorts on CW Seed for Deathstroke into a film. And this one featured no branding. There was no little side art sync, so it's definitely not DCAMU related, right? Well, I wish that was a good barometer for how these things work, because there's an issue. Because, yeah, you see that? and you see this, which is the Death in the Family collection, which, by the way, side note, this was one of the coolest ideas, and it's something that only purely exists on disc, because the experience of being able to choose Jason Todd's fate is kind of amazing. Like, it's an interactive version of Death in the Family where you choose what happens, and the digital version of this absolutely doesn't do it justice. You have to experience it on a disc, because the only way it actually works. And this also contained the shorts that were in the others. Now, those shorts, while being included with some DCAMU movies, like, for example, the Adam Strange short being included with Apocalypse War, weren't DCAMU related. So, again, it would make sense to not have this branding. However, these aren't the only movies to have these little side things, because the DCAMU was not the only DC Universe movies coming out at that time. There was some standalone. As you can see, the standalone stack is much smaller than the connected universe. But look at all these character portraits. So, for example, Justice League Gods and Monsters is its own standalone universe that's done in the Bruce Timm art style, so it kind of is a DCAU adjacent thing. Batman the Killing Joke is, thankfully, a standalone adaptation, but there is Joker on the side. Batman and Harley Quinn is a DCAU movie for Batman the Animated Series. Once again, Ivy's there. Gotham by Gaslight, another standalone. There is Selina Kyle. Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, which is a DCAU movie for a Justice League Unlimited sequel. Jessica Cruz is there. And then lastly, Superman Red Son, which has Red Son Superman, again, a standalone movie. Now, here's the thing. Is there anything to delineate that these are standalone and not connected to the universe? Well, no, because DC Universe movie, DC Universe movie, DC Universe movie, DC Universe Original movie, DC Universe Original movie, and DC Universe Original movie. It gets weirder because during this time they started reissuing some of the older movies. For example, here's the Wonder Woman Commemorative Edition, which was nice to get Wonder Woman on Blu-ray because I only had it on DVD prior because there wasn't Blu-rays when these whole things started. So this is a commemorative edition. It has extra bonus features and a nice little picture of, well, admittedly, New 52 Wonder Woman. No, is that Rebirth Wonder Woman? Just straight up Jim Lee art, which doesn't have anything to do with this movie. Same with the packaging art. This is like misleading, but as you can see, there's Wonder Woman. So, okay, it's a DC Universe Original movie. It goes with the old lineup, even if it has the new style packaging. They did the same for Justice League New Frontier, and I think Throne of Atlantis got one, just because they wanted to tie into Aquaman. I got the steelbook on this because it has nice Darwin Cook art all over it. Anyways, the point is, these movies are not connected to that universe, but have the same packaging style. But they all are under the DC Universe Original Movie banner, or the DC Universe Animated Original, or the DC Universe Movie banner. The whole continuing, these are our direct-to-video, sort of teen-to-adult movies that we've been releasing since 2007. However, it gets more confusing, because then we have something like Freedom Fighters The Ray. This was a CW seed series, much like the Constantine and Deathstroke ones, but unlike the Deathstroke, it has a picture of the Ray on the side, so it kind of gives you that vibe of it being in the DCAMU, even though it's part of the CW DC universe. Then we get here, because we have Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which has the DC animated movie branding, which I just realized is also on Freedom Fighters The Ray. Not DC Universe movie, DC animated movie, because, well, this is part of the CW universe. This is part of its own standalone universe. Also, excellent movie if you've never seen it. So, okay, DC animated movie means it's not part of the same continuing releases of the DC movies, regardless what universe they in. It's not in the normal cycle of releases. How about this one? DC Classic Original Movie is a branding unique to Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders, which is based on the 60s Adam West Batman series, which also features a character portrait on the side, like the DC Universe animated movies. So is this just a thing that they started doing, like all DC movies are going to have these little branding? Well, that's the thing that's kind of crazy, because the DC animated movies don't apply to something that was theatrical, like Teen Titans Go to the movies. So therefore, no character spine. However, the Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans movie was released as a DC animated movie and features Trigon. Yeah, this ain't part of the normal rotation. This is definitely more of a kid-aimed movie, but they put it under the DC animated movie banner, and they put that there. So it lines up with Freedom Fighters The Ray and things like Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders, in that it's not part of the normal direct-to-video lineup, but it has similar branding. They also did it with Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat Legends is done by Warner Brothers Animation, with a lot of the same people that work on the animated movies. Look at that little picture of Scorpion. in a similar style. So while not lining up perfectly with like a DC movie, it sort of has that same vibe because it's just a Warner Brothers animation thing. So yeah, and then you notice Ninja Turtles doesn't have a character portrait because it's got to have the Nickelodeon logo. That's the only reason I think it's not there. So these four things are all part of different projects and different releases, all having a consistent branding style, which also happens to line up with, as I'm trying to juggle too many Blu-rays in this video, this also happens to line up with the DC Universe animated original movies. So these are all sort of not connected, but sort of are connected and sort of look okay together on a shelf. However, after Batman Death in the Family, things pivoted, and now it's gotten more confusing. So Superman Man of Tomorrow ushered in a new era of DC animated movies, following Justice League Dark Apocalypse War wiping out the previous universe. And at the time, we weren't sure if this was going to be a connecting universe because producers were kind of like, hey, we made a standalone Superman movie. I'm like, cool, that's neat. Why is Brainiac on the side of this when he's not in the movie? And why is Wonder Woman's arm there? This was a new era of DC animated movies. However, consistency is not its strong point. So, as we established, previous DC animated movies, regardless if they were under the DC Universe movie label, were being released with consistently accurate spines. Now this, seemingly, when it first came out, introduced a connecting spine art, which we would see followed up on. In addition to a new branding where they put the format down here, and then put the title here so they could have the branding up here. Pretty cool stuff. It is also marked as DC Universe Movie, and on the back, you have DC Universe Movies, a new era of adventure, which implies that this is a new universe, which, as we will learn, is the case. However, there's going to be a lot of ways we get there. Next up, DC Universe movie, Batman Soul of the Dragon. Now this movie features Batman and a bunch of martial arts characters. Batman's kind of a secondary character in this, which I really appreciated. Once again, DC Universe movies, a new era of adventure. Even though this does seem like a different universe, different art style as well. However, there's a picture of Wonder Woman on the side, who is not in this movie. But that picture of Wonder Woman lines up to the Man of Tomorrow Blu-ray to make what is clearly a D. We have a connecting spine art. You'll also notice that these 4K releases line up perfectly with the formatting. What was the next movie? Hey, look at that. The Wonder Woman tease paid off with Justice Society World War II. Here's the branding again. Wonder Woman's arm, and then we see Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl's not in the movie. Hawkman is in the movie, and he actually has lines for once, which is nice. But as you can see, similar branding. DC Universe movies, a new era of adventure. Really consistent stuff. So, seemingly, you have these movies. Now, where's the tie-in? Well, Superman appears at the beginning of Justice Society World War II. It's the same Superman with the same voice actor, and this movie's in the same art style. So these are definitely connected films. Even if most of it takes place on Earth 2, it starts on Earth 1. So where does Soul of the Dragon fit into this? At first I thought, hey, maybe their Batman existed in the 70s. Well, here's the thing. Different art style, but still part of the spine art. This will be important in a moment. So from here, we get to the Batman Long Halloween Part 1. And Warner Brothers decided to do something kind of stupid, in my opinion. We'll just roll these together. Part 1 and Part 2, okay? My assumption was that we were going to get a combined version, which was confirmed. In the press release for Batman Long Halloween Part 1, they confirmed that the movie would be released on Blu-ray, and that a 4K release would be not released with the multiple parts. And they would instead do the 4K with the actual combined version. Okay, cool. So here's the thing. What about the spine arts? Because the spine arts, well, they're continuing, right? With the Blu-rays. Because, hey, that's 2 more pieces to the spine art because these are 2 more movies. Well, what's going to happen with the 4Ks is what I thought. Because, hey, there's the 4K right there. And, yeah, it's not going to exactly line up with the Blu-ray. Which, by the way, this Blu-ray here has Constantine and Aquaman. Aquaman appears in Justice Society World War II. Constantine has not yet appeared in this universe. And then the spine art here for Long Halloween Part 2 has Green Lantern, John Stewart, as well as Sinestro appearing in the next film, which we'll talk about in a moment. Here's the thing. This is 5 movies, 3 of which would be firmly established in the same universe. Superman, Justice Society, and Long Halloween all feature the same art style and have a consistent thing going for them. Won't talk about Long Halloween Part 2 too much, but it does establish that these 4 movies are in the same universe. And as you can see, we're starting to build out the letters D, C, and possibly a U. Now, Soul of the Dragon just seems like a different universe. So my thought process was, all right, DC Universe movie is what they're using as the branding for the DC animated movies, including the DC Universe movies, A New Era of Adventure. This is some consistent branding like how we had seen before. So even if they're in different universes, I figured, all right, they're trying to get us to buy all the movies instead of just ones that are in the same universe. So they want us to have a nice little packaging art. And even with Long Halloween not being released in 4K up front, maybe the 4K release that comes later would include a double wide case to fill out the Blu-ray shelf. Well, that's not exactly how things turned out, because to date, we don't know when the Long Halloween Deluxe Edition is coming. In fact, we've had no news beyond it's coming in 2022. And we've had 5 movies in between Part 2 and that Long Halloween Deluxe Edition that currently, as of the filming of this video, we don't know when it's coming out. And that's going to lead to a problem. And let's start about problem number 1 and why the spine art is an issue. Because the next movie released was the DC animated movie Injustice. Which, here's the thing. One of the consistent things from the DC Universe animated movie lineup since the beginning is they always had a teaser of the next movie as a bonus feature. So on Long Halloween Part 2, you see it says, sneak peek at the next DC animated movie, Injustice. Just like this one had said, the next DC animated DC movie, Long Halloween Part 2. And this is the case for all of these. Sneak peek at Long Halloween Part 1. So each movie has led into the other. You know about the next one from the current one. It's a consistent branding thing. Now here's the thing to keep in mind. You may be wondering, well, what about those other movies that had that similar branding? Do they have previews? No. So you see this has got a bunch of song stuff and 9 bonus cartoons. These are separate. So we know that Injustice is part of this direct-to-video market. Even if it is established to be, well, I thought it was going to be a prequel to the video games adapting the comics, but it doesn't adapt the comics well, and it actually kills off several key characters that are important to the video game story, so it actually exists in a pocket universe between Injustice things, and honestly doesn't even work as its own thing. But that does not necessarily mean it's in the same universe, because Soul of the Dragon exists, and it's in the spine art, even if Long Halloween is a completely different Batman in a different time period with a different art style that matches Justice Society and Superman. So seemingly, Injustice should continue the spine art. Except it doesn't. Well, okay. So that says to me that they dropped the spine art. Because obviously a movie like Soul of the Dragon that doesn't have any tie-ins to the other 4 movies is its own universe. So is Injustice. But you're going for the consistent branding, right? Well, turns out I was wrong because, yeah, there is Injustice released as a DC animated movie, not a DC Universe movie. Very different wording. So continuing forward, this becomes the case. The Batman Year 1 Commemorative Edition, I didn't expect to be part of the spine art, but it, basically is just a standard Blu-ray. It's got the same thing where the logo is big. You get the DC Warner Brothers logos and the format. Okay, cool. What next? Well, this one I don't have the standard release of, but Catwoman Hunted. Here's a picture of the standard release. As you see, no spine art. Once again, released as a DC animated movie. Year 1 was a DC Universe movie because it was already a DC Universe movie from before. But Catwoman was released a DC animated movie, but it still has the DC animated movies A New Era of Adventure branding, which is the case not for Commemorative Edition Year 1, but also the case for Injustice. So they are trying to keep some consistent branding, but this spine art is telling us that they're only going to connect the movies that are in the same distinctive multiverse. Because, once again, Constantine House of Mystery, the next DC Showcase animated shorts, does not have spine art. This has got the Constantine House of Mystery short, which is in the DCAMU, but doesn't have DCAMU style box art, so they really just haven't planned this out. But then also includes the Kamandi, Losers, and Blue Beetle shorts that were on these 3 films. So we have 2 different packaging styles. Where does Green Lantern Beware My Power fit into this? Well, as the movie's not out till July, I can only say that with the packaging art that we've seen, which prompted the entire creation of this video, they've lost their minds. Because, let's look at the packaging art for the next movie. It's not out for 2 more months after the filming of this video. I will update it in the future. But the spine art for the Blu-ray, there's the packaging art. And as you can see from the little spine art picture, which I'll zoom in here, it continues from Long Halloween Part 2's Blu-ray spine art, which had Green Lantern and Sinestro. I'll try to faux line these up right here so we can kind of sort of see where it's continuing. However, for the 4K release of Green Lantern Beware My Power, as you can see here, and we'll zoom in as well, it's got the same part of the spine art that Long Halloween Part 1 has. So what is going on here, besides them just wanting me to tear my hair out? Okay, so let me see the thought process here. Okay, so we're going to move these out of the way. They're just not relevant anymore, but hey, that's stuff that's come out. Okay, so here we go. Looking at, you know, everything we got here, right? Looking at all our spine art stuff. These 3 movies were 4K, right? So the next part of the 4K spine art would be Long Halloween Part 1. But Long Halloween Part 1 and 2 came out prior to Green Lantern Beware My Power. So are the 4Ks just going to be out of order at that point? Because when are we getting that Long Halloween 4K in the commemorative edition or the deluxe edition, whatever you want to call it? And is it going to be a double wide case? Because if you say that, all right, let's put, you know, all right, Green Lantern Beware My Power takes the place of Long Halloween Part 1. Then the Long Halloween Deluxe takes the place of Part 2. There's still another part that the Blu-ray for Long Halloween Part 1 contains. So the 4Ks are going to be behind. Now, this could have been averted if they'd done the Long Halloween 4Ks with the individual parts. But I can understand the waiting for the combined version, since 4K is typically the higher-end collector market. Here's where it gets dumb on my part, because, well, here's the thing. I thought, okay, we're going to get the 2 parts of it, and then we'll get the combined one probably before the next movie, because that's what had happened with Dark Knight Returns. That's what had happened with Death and Return of Superman. So me, I was like, well, I'm going to buy the movies right away so I can get them and watch them. And I thought, oh, those steelbooks look nice. See, the thing was, is I thought about this, and I thought we would get the next part of the spine art for the 4Ks matching up with the deluxe edition. Maybe it'd be a double wide case, something like that. They seemed really committed to this idea. And here we go. Now I have steelbooks of the Blu-rays, so that way when I'm upgrading straight to 4K for the combined version, I have some nice art steelbooks, so I haven't completely wasted my time. But as you can see, as soon as they announced the Green Lantern movie at the end of the trailer, it showed the spine art continuing, because I thought they gave up on it because of Injustice, Catwoman Hunted Batman Year 1, and Constantine having no sign of it. Specifically, Injustice not having any sign of it. I thought I didn't need these. And so then I went rushing around, ended up finding one at my Best Buy. Cool, got a slipcover. Kept finding copies of this without the slipcover, which was really a problem, because without the slipcover, these don't line up whatsoever, and that's a complete nightmare, and I don't want to throw a bunch of slipcovers off these cases just because I can't find Part 2 in slipcover. So I ended up going on a trip, take care of some family business, and ended up running into a Best Buy in a completely different state across the country, because guess what? I really needed a slipcover. And now that the full solicitation pictures are out and we have the packaging art, I'm finding out that I don't know what to do anymore. Because the way that this has worked out is I love the idea of connecting universes having connecting spine art. It's one of my favorite things when it comes to Blu-rays and DVDs. It's gotten me to buy stuff that I technically didn't need, like a second copy of Long Halloween Part 1 and 2. But now, if it does end up being the case that the Green Lantern movies have different spine art pictures depending on format, I'm going to end up buying that movie twice, because I want the 4K for the video and audio quality bump, but I'm going to want the Blu-ray for the shelf to have consistent spine art. Did they in fact put 2 different spine arts on 2 different formats? Because that's asinine. With Superman, Batman, and Justice Society, these 3 movies, the spine art portions are the same, whether it's 4K or Blu-ray. With Green Lantern, they're different. With Injustice, the 4K didn't have a spine art piece either, so here we are, once again, being confused as to how this branding works out. This, currently, as it is a complete nightmare. So anyways, if you enjoyed this discussion, because I think it was lengthy. I don't know. I probably talked way too much about this. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe and notification bell. There's plenty more disc discussions on the channel already, and there is more coming up. This one was kind of personal just because I wanted to talk about spine art. Again, I like it. This is what I look at with my Blu-rays 90% of the time. I don't watch them all the time. I mostly look at them on a shelf, so this stuff's important. I think it actually is quite important. But anyways, if you enjoyed this, there's more videos on the channel, and you can check out more in the future. Also, be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for more DC movie news. We usually post when trailers go up and stuff, so keep an eye out for that. And also my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.